And we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from in the world. Welcome to another high vibe conversation. I'm your host, Shel Shapiro, and with me today, the high vibe ladies. Today we're talking all about self expansion. And for me, this seems to go hand in hand with the conversation I was having earlier this week about letting go. So, Jenny, what exactly does self-expansion mean for you when you think about it?
When I think of self-expansion, I think about the journey of reclaiming my life, reclaiming my power in life. Um, it's like we're born into this world, into the space that is our own. And I love to use the image of a beach because to me, the beach is freedom. It's the vast space. It's me, just like reaching my arms out as long as I can and like fully enjoying that space. So that's how I came into this world with my longings, my passions, my personality, my creativity, my thoughts and ideas, and the juiciness of me. And then in life, people come into our lives, and it's like we have all this space and this freedom, and we start compromising. Many times because we just want everyone to be happy, right? So I know that I found myself in situations where my inner knowing was telling me, no, I'm not okay with this. And yet I heard myself saying, okay, I compromised and I didn't live in integrity of who I was. So it's like you start making that space smaller. And then because I was allowing so much in my life that I didn't really believe in or truly want, there was less space for me to say yes. So something would be offered to me, and like my inner knowing would be telling me like, oh, this is for me. I long for this. I want this. And then I would hear myself saying no. And so it's like we start making this space smaller and smaller and smaller. And I was at a point where like I was dying. I couldn't breathe. And I remember I took a walk in the woods and I decided that I was not going to die for my kids. I was going to live for them. So I started, entering that exploration of who I was at my core. And I started honoring myself and saying yes when I wanted to say yes, and saying no when I wanted to say no. And to me, that's like expanding, it's reclaiming, it's being true to me, and start enjoying that space again. And that's the journey that I will take my clients through to enjoy as well.
I heard so many good things, juicy nuggets in there, so I just want to call out a few of them that really resonated with me. One of them being you said that you wanted to say yes to more of the things that you wanted to do. So the opposite of expansive to me feels like when you're like really closed off, or like, and you also said something about you found yourself compromising and saying yes to things and trying to make things work that were innate no's, like that you knew deep down you didn't want to do, but you found yourself finding a way to do them anyway, and trying to like meet somebody halfway on it. So the yeses that you were saying yes to, like the things that you were saying yes to, what was keeping you from saying no more? And is it because you wanted everybody to be happy, or is it because you just didn't know how to like step into that expansiveness for yourself and own that no? But before you answer that, the other thing that I heard you say was I love the visual of the beach, right? Like the spreading your arms and like being able to like have that freedom and the openness to just be yourself without like somebody else coming in and taking away those pieces of you. So like I lost my other thought. But what are you thinking about? Like what's coming in for you when you think about the times when you were saying yes and you knew you didn't really want to?
There were many reasons why I struggled establishing healthy boundaries. I mean, the the tools that were given as a child, that's one thing, like we work with what we get, right? And I remember that growing up there was a lot of things going on around me and with my brothers and stuff, and I remember learning to grow those tentacles out where I was like absorbing everyone's emotions and their needs around me, and I just started putting myself last place. And so that's a kind of high sensitivity that I have developed through different times in my life. And what comes with that is that you don't really, you're not really exploring the truth that you're worthy of claiming that space. You're worthy of having your boundaries respected and all of these. Yeah. And yeah, it's also something that can be built into a person. When you're in a relationship where you are being manipulated and you're being gaslighted. It's like I was in a relationship where I had things thrown at me from the side, and it's like I was trained to be stuck in my head. I was trained to have my focus always be with my partner, so that and looking back, like I understand why a person will do that to someone, because it just keeps them occupied from being present and exploring what they truly want. That's just some nuggets to, yeah, some answers to your question.
I appreciate you sharing that with me, Jenny, and with all of us, because I'm sure we can all relate to times when we've felt not ourselves, felt like we were uh, doing like a dance on a tightrope, like walking that fine line of and keeping all the balls in the air of like, I can't let this drop, or like, what does this person need? And that takes away from what you might need in that moment. Uh, and the self expansion piece is when you can finally just let go and let those balls drop and be like, I'm going to be myself anyway. Right? I'm going to explore this. I'm going to see what I can be even with you in this space. So I
Yes,
love
and
thinking
I
about it.
love I love that you bring up letting go, because letting go is never about what we're saying no to. It's about what we are creating space for. So I let go of a marriage. I let go of some friendships. I let go of things. And it was all about what I was choosing to say yes to: the relationships, the people, the situations, the experiences that truly served me and my kids better. Right?
I'm just like feeling all the love right now and like the way that you show up to serve. Um, and I want to bring it over to Dorit now for a second. Um, how I know with all the sexcapades and puppy birthing that you're doing right now, uh, talk to us about like how you're showing up to serve in this way, and how does that feel? And because this is like you've been doing it for a while, but like you've been expanding more and more into this and diving into it. So how is this coming up and feeling for you when you're expanding yourself in this way?
Um, First of all, I'm thinking back to when I was completely burnt out and very ill, because that made me close off everything. I was so afraid of saying yes, because I knew that if I gave a little bit, people would want more. You know, like she can do this, then she can probably do that. And I was so worried that I would get on that roller coaster again and feel even more of that helplessness and struggle that I felt before I fell ill and burnt out. So for me, that was 7 years of just saying no to everything, where before I had said yes, of course, I'll do that, and I'll can do this, and we can, oh sure, I'll be there, you know. So learning to kind of open up a little bit again and start joining society, so to speak, and see that I could actually say yes to something and have a firm no to something else without it affecting me and my health and my mental state at the time. So that was the biggest step for me to kind of pass that threshold. The past 4 years has been wonderful in the way that I'm standing in my own power. I'm more secure. I can see the effect my expansion has on the people around me, like my daughters, for instance, close friends that I have are commenting on it and noticing that I'm more how can I put this, shiny. That you know that you have more to offer, that you're not hiding your light, that you have a joy in what you do, you know. And I was so worried that my daughters would copy me and be that running themselves into the wall kind of a mentality that I had, just to please everyone else and be the good girl. And I'm so happy and proud to see that they every time I hear my daughter says, well, I was offered to work so and so, but I need the weekend off, so I said no. And I'm like, oh, yes. You know. Because the old me would have said, you go, you work, if they offer you something, you do, you go, you yeah. And just things like that is making a big change for me and the people close to me. So yeah, expansion of me is stepping into my queen, being the queen of my kingdom, both the kingdom that I live in, like physically, but also the kingdom within.
You said that you're showing up in a more shiny way. You said you were shiny, and
Yeah.
it's couldn't be more accurate, because now that we can all see you doing more of the things that you want to do and being able to serve in those ways and not saying yes to everything, that light does come through. You are shining, you are bright, and you are more open and not closed off to the rest of the world. So I love seeing that for you.
Thank you.
And I also love, I'm going to take it over here to Stina now. I also love, Stina, in your life and all the things that are going on around you, like just in the last few weeks alone, I see this brightness about you that, like, it was there before, but now that you're in this whole new space, I see it even more for you. Even just sitting in this bright room right behind you, like, you are standing out. You are like here. And that's not to say that you weren't before. I'm not like saying there's nothing bad about what was previous, but like I see this huge, like, for lack of a better word, expansiveness now around you and in your surroundings and in the way that you step into it and own it and appreciate it, and the way that you're taking time for yourself to like to go outside and sit in nature and by the lake and just have more peace. It's such a beautiful thing to be on the outside looking in and seeing this from you, because it just makes my heart warm and like happy, and like I want to join you on it, and it just feels really good and positive. So I just wanted to carry that over, because expansiveness for you, and this goes across the board, like when we see other people transforming themselves and expanding themselves and opening themselves up, doesn't it just make you want to like be on that journey with them and like do that for yourself? Maybe not in the same way, but like it's like, I want more of this. I want to share more of these experiences. And so I love the vibes that you're putting out there, and keep them coming, please.
I'm trying to remain semi-composed so that I can reply to you. That means so much. From what I've learned about myself and like in my human design and my astrology, my gene keys, like everything says like I have to do the thing and just let people watch and let people see what can be done. And that is really hard to focus on that, because I want to, like, there's a part of me that wants to teach and share and like say all of the things, but it's like doing them. There's this shift into doing it and like making it happen and making it real, that it just means a lot to have that reflected back to me and observed, because I was actually sitting here thinking like I'm such an observer, like as everyone's talking, I'm always taking everyone else in, and I'm like putting things together, and so it's a gift. It's just a gift to feel like seen in that way. So thank you so much for that. And I feel that. And right next to my computer or my desk, I have this little piece of art that I made to put on the wall, because I was just in the living room one day and like I just had this moment, like one of those like lightning strike moments where I've had these before, where I just will get a phrase or a word or something that like anchors me into that experience. When I was pregnant with my second, it was, "You're exactly where you're supposed to be." And I just had this sign that was just like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And it was just like anchoring me into that pregnancy, and that it was like a very exhausting pregnancy. And so I just needed to remember that I'm where I'm supposed to be. Like there's no rush. I had another one where I heard, every compromise must go. Anything that is not exactly what you want, like has to be let go of, has to be cleared away. And that was a huge moment for me. And this one was just, it happens here. And it makes me so emotional, because in 2017, I got into a car accident. And as my car was spinning around from hitting the first car, I was expecting a second car. Like there was just this disorientation of, I don't know where I'm at on the road. I don't know who else is coming. I just thought for sure it was going to turn into a like pile up in that moment. And as I was spinning and the airbags are going off and there's dust everywhere, I was like, this can't be the last scene in my movie. I haven't done what I came here to do. And there wasn't a second car. And I walked away from that accident, and so did the other person that I hit, which was pretty miraculous considering both cars were absolutely totaled in the process. And like I drive through that intersection all the time. Like I have to drive through that intersection to take my kids to school. I have to drive through that intersection to get downtown to any event. It's unavoidable to be constantly reminded of that moment of like promise to myself that I think a lot of people have when they have like kind of a near-death experience, or that brush with death where you're like, I could have been gone, like just a slight change in that event and I wouldn't be here. And And it's that like promise to myself um, that I'm learning to honor more and more. And that I was just writing this morning. I have like this post all ready to go. I've been wanting to start a Substack blog. And I was like, you know what? I don't have anywhere that I just write whatever comes out of me, like whatever it is, for no purpose other than this is what I have to say. This is what I have to express without thinking about who's going to read it or what quote unquote value it's going to have to someone else. Or, I'm a copywriter. So my job is to take someone's words and make them translate to someone else in a valuable way, in a meaningful way. And in my journal, I do that. I do the just like dump whatever's on my mind. And I was like, I get to give myself that space, and it doesn't have to make me money, and it doesn't have to bring in an audience, but like, this is me. This is what I have to share. And I wrote about the car accident. I ended it with like, this is my delta. And a delta, Jenny, when you said beach, like a delta is that space where a river comes out into a bigger body of water. And I'm literally like on the water, feeling that expansiveness of, the journey down the river. And like in Women Who Run with the Wolves, she talks about the river beneath the river and everything that goes into the flow and the river banks that hold the river, which like my partner, my fiance Foy, has been for me like those riverbanks. And it's like that liberation feeling where you make that decision for yourself. And as everyone was talking about like the yeses and the nos, I have this like, I guess, theory that I would like to test out, because we've talked about this a lot of times and I've never thought of it in this way. When I say yes and I don't mean it, I don't typically actually use the word yes. Like if I think about times when I've committed to things that I didn't want to commit to, or I've overpromised something, or I've like compromised, it's usually like oh, okay, I could do that, or sure. Like there's all these weird ways that we kind of like soften it, because I think that if we actually said yes, we would be confronted with the fact that it's not a yes. Like it would be too out of integrity. So you have all these ways that we kind of like avoid actually saying yes, but we just kind of go along with it and just kind of agree, like subliminally agree with this person. And then we end up telling ourselves a story that makes us feel better about the fact that we're compromising and we're out of integrity and we're doing this thing we don't want to do. And then on the flip side with a no, if we have to say no to someone, we also won't just say no. We tell them a story to try and get them to believe. So when we're saying this like out of integrity, yes, but not saying yes, we're convincing ourselves that it's okay. And when we're saying a no, like, oh, I'm sorry, I won't be, we'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I won't be able to make it. I have other plans, or I have this come up, or I have that going on. We make a story so that they will feel okay, so that like it will be okay that we said no. And so there's just so much like convolution that goes into like being out of integrity with ourselves, not honoring like our true priorities, our true values, our true purpose. And like, that's what I felt when I was faced with like my own mortality, in my car. In that moment was like, shit, I haven't done the thing. I knew it. Like in that moment, I just knew I haven't done the thing. I've done lots of wonderful things, but I haven't done the thing. And it's now 5 years later. And this morning I was like, I don't know how much time you get. I don't know how much time I get to do that thing. So I better start fumbling after it, even if it's just little steps, even if it's just little things that turn me in the direction of getting a little bit clearer. A little bit clearer, yes, a little bit clearer, no, a little bit more in integrity. Um, in whatever tiny ways I can do that. Because if I've learned anything this year, it's that like the everyday commitments, the tiny little steps, the things that feel so insignificant when you're doing them are the things that add up and build and turn into things that blow your mind. You're like, how did this happen? How did I get here? What is happening? And, my therapist, when I got this lake house, she said, so tell me like, let's reflect on what you did to like create this and make this happen. And I was like, I have no idea. I have no idea how this happened. It's just like magic, And she was like, well, you had to have the deposit saved. You had to do the, like she was like trying to help me reflect on the practical things that I did. And I was like, no, I wasn't thinking any of that while that was going on. Because when you're focused on like the true trajectory, like Terry's vision roadmap, when you set your trajectory to the one thing, the big thing, and you just keep taking the next step, that that's the only way to get there. Like you do arrive. It does happen. And it's keeping like the faith and the belief along the way that like it's worth it. This is worth it. The step is worth it. The commitment's worth it. Even if I don't see like instant ROI, because we really like those like instant payoffs. And coming out of people pleasing, you have to give up all of that, because people pleasing is about that instant gratification all the time. Approval, 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 praise, praise, praise. And then we've shifted into honoring ourselves, and it becomes a very different conversation.
Talk about shifting into honoring ourselves. Holy moly. Like I want to curse in so many ways, and that's not usually something that I do here. I'm going to it in a little bit and not do that. But I feel like I'm at a crossroads right now where I want to honor myself so badly. And yet I'm stuck in the familiar, or back in the familiar of discomfort in so many ways. And every time I like test the waters, and I'm like, let's probe a little bit. Like how could I feel a little bit better here? What could I do less of? What do I want to do more of? What feels good right now? And then I hit the brakes on myself, because someone's telling me that that's not how it needs to be done, or why am I not doing this? And there's so much disbelief in myself right now. And I'm not afraid to admit that. Like I'm at such a crossroads where I'm like, why am I psyching myself out? And it's because I'm in a place where I'm not being true to myself. And how do I get that back? So talking about like stepping into our own and just like getting super clear, even when I have the clarity, like I know what I want more of, and yet it's that layer of the onion that like feel like I've worked through this before, and now it's coming at me in a different way, and I'm like, all right, let's unpack this again. Let's unpack it as many times as I need to hear it, see it, go through it, so that I really can be myself. And I toe that line quite often of like, am I showing too much of my vulnerability? Am I putting too much of like the things that I'm afraid of out there? And then what am I doing it for? So I'm at this place of like, I don't even have the words for it now, because it just figuring it out and finding myself is like the best way that I can describe it. But there's a lot of good things happening here too. Like it's not all bad. And yeah. And yeah. So Holy
It's all
shit.
part of the process.
Yeah. And I
It's all
want
part of
people
the
to know that
process.
that's
And
okay.
yes. And I was just going to say like 2 really quick things. One is be so gentle with yourself, because everything feels uncertain all the way through like the whole journey. And like all we can do is just we always say, like, what's the one next step I can take? Just one thing. What's one small way I can honor myself right now? In this scenario, what do I need to say? What do I need to do? Who do I need to talk to? Just do one little thing, because it's like the big shift never comes, like it's just the declaration and the decision right now. And then, all right, it's gonna feel shitty again. I'm gonna feel lost again. It's just all like, it's all okay. And just like wrap yourself up in a big warm blanket. Like, it's good. We're getting there. We're making progress.
Yeah. Thank you. That it helps hearing those words. Before I go on, Jenny, I see you're not on mute. What's coming in for you?
Yes. Well, we're so aligned. This was like, if there's anything I'd love to add to this conversation before we're done, it's how much anxiety there is to claiming that space. And I love that it's not a huge transformation from one day to another, like Stina says. It is those small steps. And I know so well how it's like, I know that I will get, and I will tell Linda, like, oh God, goodness, this is another circle. Like, this is another layer, like me pushing those circles out. And when we're at that place, yes, it is unfamiliar. And like, we're building new neural pathways, even. Like, it is a process. And I will just encourage my clients to, one, do it anyway. When you do want to say that no or allow yourself something. And then it's really about holding that space. There's no rush. It's not about just pushing and pushing and pushing. It's about reclaiming that area and then just hold it. And in time, it will become a second nature to you. Because those new pathways that you're building, in the beginning, it's like we're going out into the wilderness and we're creating this new trail. But the more that we walk that trail, it becomes our new path. And it does become a part of us. And that's when we get to enjoy having reclaimed that space in our life. So everything we long for, the freedom, the peace, the alignment, is on the other side of that fear. And it's there for us. It's so powerful.
Thank you, Jenny. All of you, Jenny, Stina, Dorit, Linda, I'm coming to you, I promise. Your words like are so powerful, and not like, they are so powerful. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate you saying them, because I need to hear them. And I'm sure so many other people need to hear them too. And you were speaking, Jenny, about finding that new pathway and reclaiming and claiming what's ours, what we want to be ours, what we want for ourselves. And it had me thinking about Linda and her glamping experiences and being out in nature. So I use this as a segue to talk about your expansiveness, and when you're going on these glamping experiences and like taking yourself out in nature, what are some of the ways that you take time to appreciate this when you're out there? And like, what are you getting from that? And how did you know that that's what you needed, for lack of a better way to ask?
Well, what came up for me in listening to everybody is what got you guys moving forward was the I deserve it. Like, you've all gone through that hoop, and I didn't go through that hoop until I was in my 50s. And I had that spin out on the highway. I didn't get hit, but I let go of the wheels. Dean and I have talked about our experiences, and you don't. I mean, I'm on the highway with lots of traffic, and I am spinning out on the ice. Completely let go of the wheel and close my eyes. And this was while I was getting divorced, and I landed over on the grassy. There was no grass, it was snow, but the divider of the highway. And that was just one of those expansive moments of what do I want? What do I need? I've worked so hard to make this marriage work, to survive these really challenging kids alone. And that's that that was the first step to then moving on to realizing that I didn't love myself. And even when I came into my second marriage, it still was evident I didn't love me. So I moved into that as well. And then from there, in loving me and doing what I needed to do, what I deserved to do, I started camping on my own. And women were just going wild with that when they'd hear that, like, oh, you did what? That's dangerous. Why would you do that? There was a whole Facebook group that, really flipped out. Like, I just really needed to do it and wanted to do it. And I didn't have a sense of that it wasn't safe. I didn't appreciate thinking about bears going around the tent. So there was that. And then, Shell, in the beginning, when you were talking about the spinning of the plates, when my kids were really little, I mean, my daughter was a nursing baby, I started selling Discovery toys. Well, before she was born, actually, selling Discovery toys. And there was an opportunity to go to conferences in Chicago and the other one's California. And just like Terry's roadmap thing, I held that I was going to those. Come hell or high water, I deserved them and I'm going. And I left a nursing baby when I had my daughter even. And I didn't know anything about breast pumps or anything. I just left a nursing baby. Found out real hard, like that wasn't really the best idea. And it was interesting because my sister-in-law had her, and when I got back, she wouldn't nurse. So she just like, yeah, the bottle's better. It was like, it was so crazy. And she was the kid that if you put a pacifier in her mouth or a bottle, it was like, wow, what have you put in my mouth? And I continued the bottle and supplemented with the breast all along. So it wasn't like she wasn't used to the bottle. It was just always something. So anyways, there was that. And one of the things that we did an exercise where we had like, what are the things in your life, and write them on a paper plate. And so we had our paper plates, and then think about putting them on a stick and getting that one spinning and this one spinning. And then we literally had someone on stage doing it with real breakable plates. And, oh, this one slow down, and living a life of crazy chaos in keeping it all going. And at one point, the person just stood there and let them all fall and crash and break. And yeah, so when you said the spinning plate, Shell, I just like totally went to that flashback. And another thing we did was like, what's a major something in your life? And that was like a tennis ball, and what was not as major, and that was like a golf ball, and was not as major as that, and that was like marbles, and all the way down to sand filling this container. And then it's like, here's your business. And it's this huge, the container of water, I think, was almost as big as the container that's completely full. And then we took that water and poured it into that container. and it took it. It worked. It was so cool. And then in high-end coaching, I learned like build your life and then build your business around your life. And I know you guys, we've all had like conversations that way, and making sure that you're doing you so that everything else in your life works for you. So that's my take.
Yeah. Making sure that you're doing you so that everything else around you makes sense. And that's something that I work with a lot of clients on. And it's interesting, something that's been coming up for me a lot this week, and I've heard several times, and even I think I heard it in my own head after I was like ruminating on it, is the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. Somebody said that to me earlier this week, and I've heard it before, and so I was dwelling on it. And I think that's something that people tell themselves when they're not willing, when they're afraid of like the unknown. Because no, why would I want to stand with the devil? Like when there's all these powerful angel numbers coming at me all the time, right? That I'm ready for this change. This is what I need. This is what I'm here for. And the universe just provides things when I need to see them. And so I was hearing that devil I know thought in my head even this morning, and thought, how do I disprove this? Because I don't want the devil that I know. I want the unknown. I want to explore. I want to create something new that's different, that's not this, because this is uncomfortable. And if I stay with the devil that I know, then I'm just going to stay here. And how sucky does that feel? So the idea of expansiveness and giving yourself what you need and building your life that you want, that feels good, and then everything else just falls into place. That's not the devil that I know. That's me that I know, and I'm not the devil. So I say that all to say that, like, you have to open your mind and be able to be willing to change in order to expand. Because if you're just going to sit there with the same things day in and day out, what are you expanding to? It's very limited. And we don't want that for you. We don't want that for ourselves. So that's why these conversations are so important. Before I round out for the day, does anyone have anything else that's coming up for them that they'd like to share? Because I could go down another rabbit hole, or 10 or 20.
That's a brilliant analogy, Shell. Thanks for sharing that. I love that. Like, we don't think that way, especially when you hear anything a lot, you kind of go, yeah, this is how we're supposed to think. This is how we're supposed to believe, instead of like challenging what society just takes for granted as a good guidebook, so to speak. And I've been reading Women Run with the Wolves to Jenny, and the latest one is about how the devil jumped out and changed the message, and it's like, yeah, the devil changes the message. And so it's like, when you're on a course that's really working well for you, or like Jenny and I talk about the neural pathway, there's the old neural pathway and there's the new neural pathway, and you just get to decide where you're at in this moment, and notice that, oh, you're over here, and where do you want to be? Oh, I want to be back over here. And that's the idea of the devil changed the message. Like, is this what you really want? Like, who changed the message all of a sudden? Like, why are you choosing to be over here? That's what came up for me as well.
I appreciate our conversation so much, Linda. And when you're out of duality, I mean, it's not beating yourself up for having, gone back to an old pathway. It's just switch. It's like, it's just a choice, and it's so calm. There's no drama, and we get to enjoy that new path. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
Let's all expand to no drama, shall we? Because sometimes drama, who wants that? Sometimes it's good, but it's good in the sense that it can keep you moving forward and moving on to like the next thing in the way that you need to express yourself. So with that said, this has been another High Vibe conversation. Today we talked about so many things and more. If you feel like you resonated with any parts of this conversation at all, please jump into the chat and let us know. We'd love to hear from you so that we can bring you more conversations for change. Until next time, we'll be saying bye. Join us again next week for another High Vibe conversation.